Thank you very much, Siva. So here we are. We had 5 excellent presentations, and we heard the views of a nutritionist. We heard Lindsay talk about what the problems are and where the solutions need to be found. We heard Howdy talk about food prices and the role of biofortification. Dino made a pitch for not a green revolution, but a revolution with greens, and I think that message came out loud and clear. Lloyd provided a very good overview of some of the problems we are facing in terms of food and nutrition security, CGIR's role in that respect, and he advocated a partnership revolution. That's also a message that came over loud and clear. And finally, Siva gave the policy aspect and drew the attention to the importance of policy when it comes to the research tools and the technology tools that are at our disposal, and how important policy is in order to turn these into realities and make sure that we get results. So now we have about 25 minutes left, and I would invite you to ask any of the panelists questions. I'm going to start in the front row here. First question. Please identify yourself and the organization you belong to, please.
My name is Murli. I work with the World Food Program in India. I'm an agriculture graduate, so there are little aspects which I want to dwell on, particularly on the array of speakers that, in fact, for the last 3 days we have been hearing a lot about the leveraging agriculture and improving nutrition. What I suggest is maybe it's for you people to discuss among yourself and come up with later. We have to really work backwards as to what really, for example, if this area is populated so much, and we really have to work backwards in terms of what nutrition requirements of each of these village or a district or a state. And then perhaps what I have not heard, although I have been advocating quite a bit, is on crop planning. We have talked a lot about what nutrients are required for an individual and therefore with different age groups of people, etc. But what we perhaps have to plan at a larger level, even including at a household level, is crop planning. In fact, I am really delighted to hear Dino telling about 6 and 6 meters is good enough to, to give good nutrients for the entire year for 5 people or so. So if we can now start with that kind of idea as to how much rice is required or wheat is required, etc., and so that we can, make those implementations possible at the village level or at a hamlet level or whatever, so that those requirements are met first and then surplus could be talked about for other things. I think the thinking on that line has not really been given a proper thought.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for your consideration. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Anybody of the panelists want to react? Make a quick reaction to that?
Yeah. You can't, I don't think you can really tell farmers, you can't plant and then tell farmers what to plant. So you have to give them the proper price incentives. So an example of an improper price incentive, for example, and excuse me, I don't know India that well, but rice and wheat are subsidized, and pearl millet is not subsidized, and pearl millet is much more nutritious than rice and wheat. So that's an example where you're giving Indian consumers an incentive to eat something that's less nutritious. So I think the prices have to reflect what the production costs are, and in that case you'd have better nutrition.
Thank you. Next question. On the second row here, yes.
Thank you. Venkatesh Manar, Micronutrient Initiative. We are very encouraged to hear from a number of speakers about the progress you're making with agricultural approaches, both through biofortification and through fruits and vegetables to improve nutrient intakes. My question is, when we move towards a strategy of increasingly depending on plant sources and food for our nutrients, is there enough evidence that these nutrients, in addition to the quantities being present and being ingested, are in fact available through processing of the food and ultimate consumption by the individual, and to what extent are we sure that there's adequate bioavailability to ensure that ultimately we receive the right amount of nutrients through the diet? Thank you.
Thank you. Who would like to react to the bioavailability? Dino?
Bioavailability is an issue, particularly for the conversion of beta-carotene into vitamin A and also for iron. But I would also make a plea then for the issue of domestic science, which is a science which has virtually disappeared from the world, but in fact is a very important one. That if we can in fact understand the ways of cooking vegetables, pulses, and other things correctly, then we can in fact liberate much more of these micronutrients and vitamins into the human body than otherwise that will just get rejected. So I believe we have plenty of science that can bring to bear to this, but it's fair to say that not all vitamin A in a plant that you eat will in fact benefit you.
Lindsay? Yeah.
I would agree that it's a very important area of study, not least because cooking, of course, and food preparation can also cause large losses of nutrients from food. And we have to look at that too. I do believe, however, that there are some nutrients which are never going to be found in plant sources. Vitamin B12 is the huge example there. And so I think there are always going to be some gaps, and we need an approach that has these incredibly nutrient-rich fruits and vegetables there, as well as some animal source foods, especially for young children. But what I'm hoping is that kind of harmonization planning cascade that I'm talking about will enable us to come together and see how those are mutually compatible to achieve nutrient goals that we really need to meet.
Thank you. Next question.
I'm Victor Manyong from the International Institute of Tropical Agriculture, IITA, Tanzania. Lindsay, you remind us about the role of agriculture in nutrition. I think that is very important, and it is in line with the theme of this conference. I think nutrition is about quantity and quality. So often we neglect the macronutrient, we talk only about the micronutrient. I think we need to keep in mind that the body really needs more than 40 nutrients, including the macronutrient. But in your speech, you mentioned that current macronutrient programs are not sufficient to meet population nutrient needs. But I was expecting you to go further and tell us what could be the additional micronutrient program that could help us to achieve this goal, especially after listening to Audi about all the effort made through biofortification and the revolution of greens by Dino. Are those the missing program you believe could contribute to attain that goal?
Yes, my point was that I think current micronutrient intervention programs are focused on priorities that we believe are important, but were never intended, most of them, to reach the whole household with all of those important nutrients. They're just not. For many reasons I could go into, many of them reasonable. So yes, the idea is that these nutrients have to come from food. They are essential and they must come from food. And so by combining different types of food, that's the way that we will get there. We won't always be able to make it, but then you provide micronutrient interventions that are appropriate to fill the gaps. It sounds simpler than, of course, it really is, and I'm not as naive about this as I might sound, but I do truly believe that this has to be the starting point if nutrition and agriculture programs are going to be coordinated and most effective. It's a language we can start talking about. I keep hearing words, but the actual nutrition goals are not really, I think, very clear in people's heads at the moment.
Yeah, I think it's actually very encouraging that the nutrition community is now starting to talk about using food to improve nutrition. And it sounds a little crazy, but that's the situation. And we're here to provide solutions, to try to help. I don't think any one solution is the magic bullet. We all have to work together to fill all the gaps.
Thank you. Daniel, you want to say?
One small thing. I have good news for Victor Magnon. This very week, the Tanzanian government has just released 9 new African indigenous vegetable varieties into the community, and so his nutrition is assured for the future.
Thank you. Okay, next question. And then to you, Kevin, first.
Good morning. My name is Hans Janssen. I work for the World Bank. I have a somewhat thorny question. I hope it won't be too thorny. I worked for 3 years at AVRDC. I worked for 7 years in IFPRI. Now, both are sitting on a very fashionable topic which is very relevant, which has only grown in relevance. Now, back in 1991, when I started at AVRDC, the annual budget was around $10 million. Now it's roughly double, roughly actually equal in real terms, right? Now IFPRI has now $80 million. So what is happening?
Dino and Lloyd?
There is a plain and bitter truth here. Our budget is in fact only 15 million this year. Our budget is only 15 million this year, and it should be 50 or 60 million. We have loyal donors, but we have very few of them. Now, if you can solve the political problem, which is essentially artificial and derives from fear of its big neighbor, then I'm sure that money would be forthcoming. It is required, but until that particular logjam is broken, there is very little that I, other than whine a lot, can do about it.
Food prices have had a long-term decline, and so the donor community doesn't look at it as an urgent problem. So public funding for agricultural research has been going down over time. Now food prices are starting to go up. The donors are seeing it as a crisis, and you'll see that more money will be put into agricultural research because of the high food prices. The problem is it's a very short run. They react to these short run phenomenon, but to do good agricultural research, you need a base of funding over a long period of time. I think Lloyd referred to that. But in terms of this particular conference, the point that I want to make about funding is biofortification, the work on the vegetables, they have a public health objective. We're here to improve nutrition. We're trying to marry the two communities, but the funding is all coming from agriculture. Practically all of the funding for Harvest Plus, and I know all the funding for AVRDC comes from agricultural pots of money. And we all know that the health and nutrition community, the public funding that goes into that is much, much larger than goes into agriculture. And I just think it's a shame that this work is not funded by the health and nutrition communities, and it should be.
Thank you. Kevin? Yes?
Kevin Moran of Yara. Lloyd referred to the holistic approach that's needed, and in recent days we've heard a lot about improving the agricultural value chain. My question is that avoiding nutrient depletion of soils and their consequent degradation and removal from the agricultural production system. That's my question.
Yeah, I think it's very similar to what I've said. We need to examine all approaches, including nutrient application in the soils, including good crop rotations, and making sure that conservation tillage practices and many other things are being practiced. We don't want to lose the nutrients that are already in the soil. We also need to examine, some of the benefits of permaculture and organic farming and other things like that as well. So, absolutely.
Well, Howdy just reminded me that I should say something about that since it's smack in my field. What I want to say is that we, as I mentioned, about 10 years ago, there was a change in the mindset of the fertilizer industry, and we started looking at nutrition security much more than food security. So we in the fertilizer industry, we have now mechanisms whereby we can make a positive contribution by using micronutrients into the fertilizers, and in that way improving human health. As a matter of fact, we are bringing out a major publication by the end of this year on fertilizer use and human health, in which we try to see what's the current knowledge that we have, what we can do in terms of fertilizer industry, what we can do, what are the positive aspects that we bring to the table, what is it we're contributing to human health, but also showing some of the negative aspects that we cause through the use of fertilizers. So we will have more answers by the end of the year, but we have a whole group in our association looking at that and making sure that whatever contribution we can make, that we should do it. Next question. I'll go over there.
Thank you very much. Joyce Kinabo from Tanzania. I'd like to pose a suggestion to Dino. It seems that you're doing a very good job there as far as vegetables are concerned. Can you expand perhaps or increase something on your plate and include fruits as well? Is that possible? I haven't finished. Well, my other observation is that, yeah, we have production of vegetables, we have production of fruits, but how much of that actually goes into the agricultural statistics of the countries? Often you find that that information is not there. How can we begin now to really put that information in the agricultural statistics?